here. I'm here to talk about a topic that I've talked about before, but I hope that you will stay with me on this because there's a really cool component that I'm going to add to it and you're going to say, wow. Okay, I hope so anyway. We're going to talk again about journaling. This is the journal I keep now. And as you know, I've thrown away a lot of journals that I don't want anyone to read. And I've kept a lot of prayer journals where I used to do a lot of artwork, and they're really beautiful and more positive. I was in a different place in my life when I was living in the apartment. I have been journaling for years, be it prayer journal or stream of consciousness journal or brain dump journal, whatever you want to call it. I believe that journaling should be done by hand. I believe that's the best way. This is something I heard in a video. Writing by hand has a uniqueness and an energy behind it because it's yours, it's your handwriting. Like, what means more? When someone sends you a meaningful text, that means a lot, right? But what if someone sends you a card and writes you a note in it, and you've known this person for years and you know their handwriting? There is a uniqueness behind that versus just texting or emailing. They all have their place, but writing things with your hand, I think, connects your brain in a different way than typing. But we're going to talk about typing it out on your computer keyboard. We're going to talk about that too. When you journal, if you look back at it, if I looked back from the beginning of this journal, I guarantee you I will find reoccurring themes. And once you can see that you're talking kind of about the same thing over and over, you can really stop and say, you know what? I want to change this. This is something I'm tired of doing. I'm tired of writing about this. How can I change this? What can I do differently to address that recurring theme or that thing that you keep thinking and harping on? And this is what I wrote. Can I write out different scenarios and problem solve? Try new things and leave it be instead of carrying it around with me all day long, clouding my thoughts. I journal in the morning, and sometimes if I wake up with something bothering me, I pray about it or I journal about it, or both usually. And I can just get it out before I even, start my day instead of carrying it with me all day long. For instance, here's an instance, Lexi and the hurricane. I wrote this out 2 days before that hurricane was heading to Florida recently, Iota or whatever the name was. Okay, I wrote this. Now I think the day before I wrote this, I had a bit of a panic about it coming to her because for the first time she's alone. Now Lorelai was going to be with her father already, so that was okay. But Lexi was going to be alone in a hurricane. Now, as a mom, I'm sure a lot of you could feel my pain and would understand that I was upset. Well, she called me. I had told her the day before, you need to really fill up your tank, your gas. You need to fill up your gas and get some water. Well, she didn't listen to me. So right before I wrote this, she was driving around Tampa, looking for gas. Some of the stations were already empty. She went to the store to get water. She did find gas. But in the meantime, and she goes to the store and there's no water. And I'm yelling at Scott because I'm so upset with her and I want him to fix it. And he said, well, she should have listened to you. Well, that doesn't help me, Scott, to tell me that I know she should have listened to you. You're right, okay? This didn't last very long. I'm just telling you this. So I wrote in here. This is after that happened, and she had gas, and she spent $34 on bottled Italian water because that was all that was left on the shelf. Hopefully, lesson learned. I wrote in my journal, I can spend the next 2 days, that's when it was going to hit, in a complete panic. Or I can work it out on paper or by phone, as we did last night. I ordered her a power bank for her phone because I thought if she loses electricity and her cell phone goes dead, which I know it will because she'll be texting everybody, and then I'm not able to get a hold of her, I just couldn't even imagine that. And I had ordered her on, or she ordered it. Anyway, we got it sent by DoorDash And within 15 minutes, she had one of those phone banks that gives your phone, I don't know what they're called, but they give your phone a lot of charges. And that was more for me because I didn't want to be here 8 hours away in a panic when I can't talk to her and the hurricane's hitting and everything. Okay. And I wrote here, she has food, she has water, she has candles, she has a full tank of gas, and Tampa is at the bottom of the cone. So I figured it wasn't going to be that bad, but there's always a chance they can turn. Part of my panic is that I went through a hurricane here and it didn't go well. So anyway, that was an example of writing something out and kind of getting it out of your system and thinking it through. The other thing I had to think through was I kept saying, she's alone, Scott, she's alone. What are we going to do? Where can she go? Well, she couldn't go to my friends' houses because she has a dog now, you know, and she's not leaving that dog. And I don't blame her. She wasn't in the evacuation zone. And I realized she's not alone. She's in an apartment complex with hundreds of other people. They're not going to just, I mean, she needs help. Someone's going to be there. There's going to be all these people around, okay? So that was kind of when I realized she's not even alone. Plus she has God. Plus I have people praying for her. Let it go and watch the thing on TV and see what happens. So that was a way that this journal really, really helped me. And here's one more thing I want to say before I get into the meat of this video. Our world is so fast-paced, and we say that we are overthinking. Or is it that we're thinking too fast? Fast thinking. Slowing down gives our brain a chance to process, and journaling certainly by hand slows you down. Now, and that's important to your brain. Y'all, our brains are overloaded with information. If you're on your phone or whatever, you're overloaded. Or even if you just watch the news on TV, overloaded with information, and it's all panic-filled information, right? So we need to slow down. But some of us, so right here, you're slowing down by handwriting. When is it a good idea to write on your computer? I have two ideas here. Some people will not journal because they're afraid of it being found, of it being read. Even after they're dead, they don't want anybody reading this stuff. So here's what I do. When I really need to vent about a person, an event, a situation, anything, if I need to really vent and I need to get it out of my system and quit the over fast thinking in my head, I can get out my computer, my MacBook, and type away, take a deep breath, walk around for an hour or two, and then go delete it. That's where I think journaling on your computer is really helpful. Now, you can certainly do it all on your computer. You don't have to do it by hand. Maybe you can't write really well. Maybe you have arthritis or something. All of it's valid. Here's another thing I use. I call it the clipboard method. I have a clipboard back in my bookcase. It's really cute. It's purple, and it just has notebook paper on it. And sometimes when I'm an event, but I just want to sit in bed and I want to write about something, I do it on my clipboard. And then I take those 2 or 3 pieces of paper, notebook paper, tear it, and put it in the kitchen trash with the eggshells and the potato peelings or whatever. No one's ever going to read it. But I got it out on paper longhand. Now, this is why I wanted to do another video on journaling. My granddaughter and I have a deal where we read 2 novels a month. And at the end of the month, we tell each other we read them. Well, last month, I read a novel, and then I read a really, really short book. So I still had a week to go. Almost all the books I read are on World War II. They're historical fiction. I almost always read ones that take place in Paris when they were occupied by the Nazis. But I've read 2 recently that took place in Italy, and you get such a new feel, a different take on World War II in other countries, right? So I thought, you know what? I should read this particular genre, but read it from different countries, taking place in different countries. So I just read one. Oh, I read one that took place in Venice, which was amazing. One that took place in northern Italy, up by the lakes. That one was all about Mussolini. I learned so much. And then the last one I read was in Tuscany. So I just Googled World War II books. The very first book that popped up was The Diary of Anne Frank. And I thought, oh, I've read that. And then I thought, well, have I read that? Did I read that as a kid? Or did I just watch that movie they made? There was a black and white movie they made years ago about it. And I thought, I don't think I read it. So I downloaded it from the library. It wasn't on Kindle Unlimited. And I have it here on my Kindle. Okay, here's the cover. Here's the particular book I chose. This is the cover. So I decided to read it. And now I'm trying to get to my annotations. I did annotations. When you're on Kindle, you can save certain parts of the book if you like it. And I did that. And I realized that they disappear when the book gets returned. That's why I'm doing this video today. So Anne Frank, we all know about her. We've heard about her. But if you have not read her diary, same as a journal, y'all, it is the most moving thing to see someone change over time. Now, let's talk about where she wrote her journal. She got it for her, I wrote it down. She got it for her 13th birthday, which was June 12th, 1942. They went into hiding. She didn't know they were going into hiding. This plan had been going on because things were getting so bad for the Jews. And at this point, they had migrated from Germany years before because of the treatment of the Jews. They migrated to the Netherlands and they're living in Amsterdam now. Okay, y'all, I just got up. I moved to the bedroom because you could hear the mower in the front. And then he changed and started mowing in the back. So I had to come back in here, so I'm all flustered. But all I wanted to do is read to you a couple of excerpts from Anne's diary to show you how much this diary helped her. Now, none of us are under these kinds of circumstances, being hidden they were in an annex in a warehouse. They had some upper floors, two floors, like in the attic, I guess. And towards the end, they had no food. They had, it was really, really bad. And it was very hard to live in those close quarters there were 7, 8, 9 people total, or 4, 3, 8 people total in the annex. So I wanted to read a couple of these that I highlighted before they disappear when I return my book. She's talking about different things, and it says, I want to go on living even after my death. And therefore, I'm grateful to God for giving me this gift, this possibility of developing myself and of writing, of expressing all that is in me. I can shake off everything if I write. My sorrows disappear. My courage is reborn. But, and that is the great question, will I ever be able to write anything great? Will I ever become a journalist or a writer? I hope so. Oh, I hope so very much, for I can recapture everything when I write, my thoughts, my ideals, and my fantasies. Oh, also it talks about here she was writing a book or a story, something called Katie's Life. It says, I haven't done anything more to Katie's life for ages. In my mind, I know exactly how to go on, but somehow it doesn't flow from my pen. Perhaps I shall never finish it. It may land up in the waste paper basket or in a fire. That's a horrible idea. But then I think to myself, at the age of 14 and with so little experience, how can I write about philosophy? So I go on with fresh courage. I think I shall succeed because I want to write. So that's the situation on that annotation. And I think you can see that writing means a lot to her. So let me read another excerpt for you. just something I thought was an interesting one. One sees nothing but dissatisfaction and grumpy faces here, nothing but sighs and suppressed complaints. It really would seem as if suddenly we were very bad off here. If truth be told, things are just as bad as yourself cares to make them. I thought that was amazing, considering she is under Nazi occupation. Oh, this was an interesting one. People who have a religion should be glad, for not everyone has the gift of believing in heavenly things. You don't necessarily even have to be afraid of punishment after death. Purgatory, hell, and heaven are things that a lot of people can't accept. But still, a religion, it doesn't matter which, keeps a person on the right path. If it isn't the fear of God, but the upholding of one's own honor and conscience. How noble and good everyone could be if every evening before falling asleep, they were to recall to their minds the events of the whole day and consider exactly what has been good and bad. Then, without realizing it, you try to improve yourself at the start of each new day. Of course, you achieve quite a lot in the course of time. Anyone can do this. It costs nothing, and it is certainly very helpful. Whoever doesn't know it must learn and find by experience that a quiet conscience makes one strong. Now, that is something that was very interesting to me, because she's saying if you write things down and you start to see a pattern, you can change and you can become a better person. So I thought that was quite interesting. This is a good one. This is later on in her life. For the innermost depths, youth is lonelier than old age. So she's saying that being young is more lonely than being old. I don't know if many of us would think that. It says, I read that saying in a book somewhere, and I've always remembered it and found it to be true. Is it true then that grown-ups have a more difficult time here than we do? Now she's talking about the annex. No, I know it isn't. Older people have formed their opinions about everything and don't waver before they act. It's twice as hard for us young ones to hold our ground and maintain our opinions in a time when all ideals are being shattered and destroyed, when people are showing their worst side and do not know whether to believe in truth and right and God. Anyone who claims that the older ones have a more difficult time here certainly don't realize to what extent our problems weigh down on us. Probably problems for which we are probably much too young, but which thrust themselves upon us continually until, after a long time, we think we found a solution, but the solution doesn't seem able to resist the facts which reduce it to nothing again. That's the difficulty in these times. Ideals, dreams, and cherished hopes rise within us only to meet the horrible truth and be shattered. It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out. Yet I keep them because despite everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder, which will destroy us too. I can feel the sufferings of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out. Yours, Anne. She signed every one of her entries like that. You've just got to read it, or if you read it as a kid, read it again, because while it's heartbreaking, it was interesting to read it knowing the ending. I know that she dies. They are found in the annex after 2 years and a few months. And they were found on August 4th, I believe, 1944. And she died sometime in 1945. I don't think it was too long. I believe she was in a concentration camp and she died of typhoid. and I think her mother and sister did too. Her dad is the only one that survived of everyone that hid. And the people that owned the building that they were hiding in, they were not Jews, obviously, because they had to help them hide and bring their food and everything to them, which was amazing in itself. After they were captured, one of the women, they had ransacked the attic, the Germans, but she was able to find things in the mess, and she found the diary and a few other things Anne had written, and she saved them. And years later, she was able to pass them on to Anne's father, and over a time, he decided to get them published. He left some of it out, but most of it's here. And I hear Scott coming, so this was kind of a mixed up video, but I hope you got something out of it, and I hope that you will start journaling because there's power in the pen. Bye-bye.